What if all this waiting wasn't a delay at all, but a quiet orchestration? What if the long pauses in your life, the spaces where nothing seems to move, weren't signs of neglect, but signs of divine architecture unfolding behind the veil? Imagine that the stillness you've been walking through is not evidence that you've been overlooked, but proof that you're being prepared for something far too intricate, too powerful, to be rushed into the wrong hour. Some blessings don't come wrapped in neon signs or obvious answers. Some come wearing the costume of struggle, carried quietly through the ordinary, cloaked by silence so the world won't tamper with them before they're ready to emerge. When life slows to a whisper, when prayers echo back with no reply, we assume we've been abandoned. But what if the silence is strategy? What if you're not standing in delay, but in a space carved out for alignment? Timing that belongs not to your impatience, but to a universal rhythm too vast to understand. The things meant for you don't always knock. Sometimes they arrive unannounced, slipping in through cracks in the ordinary, rearranging your world when you least expect it. Sometimes it's the friction, the resistance, the almosts, and the not yets that signal the nearness of breakthrough. It's not coincidence that everything feels on edge right before the tide turns. That ache in your chest, the sensation that something's close but still hidden, that's the sound of destiny shifting gears. There's something moving beneath the surface, even if your eyes can't trace it. You can feel it, though, like an invisible current tugging at the edges of your life. It's the kind of feeling that doesn't come with details, but comes with certainty. You know something's about to rise, not in pieces, not slowly, but all at once. A suddenness that can't be explained, only experienced. While you've been wondering when things will happen, the universe has been making arrangements in places your feet haven't touched. Conversations you don't know about are taking place. Opportunities are being shaped without your involvement. You may think everything's still, but there's movement under the stillness. There's favor assembling itself in your direction. When it finally shows itself, logic won't be able to frame it. Your mind won't understand it, but your spirit will. That's the language favor speaks. It bypasses the intellect and goes straight to the soul. There's a reason you felt quieted, not because you're being punished, but because you're being refined in secret. While others are scrambling for noise, you've been held in stillness, not as a rejection, but as preservation. The universe isn't loud with its miracles. It's precise. It doesn't shout progress. It moves with sacred intent. There is a wisdom in waiting that most never see. We equate silence with absence, but sometimes silence is the sound of meticulous design. You weren't benched, you were planted. You weren't forgotten, you were being positioned. The quiet has not been empty. It's been sacred. Every moment where nothing seemed to happen was actually full of purpose, building something beneath your awareness. Like a seed buried beneath layers of earth, your life has been rooted in preparation. Growth rarely begins on the surface. The real transformation starts in unseen places. The roots take hold before the branches ever rise. There's no applause in that process, no updates, no signs, just quiet depth. That's what's been forming beneath your weariness, a foundation, something that can withstand the weight of the blessing that's coming. Because the kind of favor being molded for you isn't lightweight. It's legacy altering. And legacy takes time. You can't microwave a masterpiece. You've been misunderstood, overlooked, maybe even dismissed, but you've also been guarded, kept away from shortcuts and quick fixes, because what's forming in you demands durability. The sacred isn't delivered in a rush. It's crafted with patience, molded by unseen hands that know your future better than your present fears do. You haven't been stalling, you've been steeping. There's a sacred slowness to anything meaningful. Look at how gold is purified. Look at how diamonds are shaped. Pressure, time, hiddenness, all of them necessary. Your life too has been shaped by this sacred pressure. Every unanswered question, every door that wouldn't open, every silence that felt like a void. It was never a denial. It was an incubation. And you weren't buried to be forgotten. You were hidden to be refined. The moments that stripped you down weren't there to shame you. They were there to prepare you. What you lost wasn't punishment. It was pruning. You were being trimmed of everything that couldn't hold what's coming, because what's coming isn't ordinary. It won't make sense in hindsight. It won't follow logic or sequence. When favor reveals itself, it does so on its own terms, suddenly, swiftly, without needing permission. This kind of favor doesn't knock. It storms in. But only after the structure within you can carry its weight. That's why the silence has been necessary. That's why the wait has felt endless. The universe doesn't waste time, but it also doesn't hurry. It's been aligning you with something that's already been designed. The pieces are coming together in rooms you've never walked into. Your name is being spoken in places your presence has not yet reached. And when it arrives, you'll realize the wait wasn't empty, it was essential. Favor isn't a reward for hustle, it's the fruit of harmony. It's what comes when your being lines up with divine intention. You can't earn it with ambition. You can't strategize your way into it. You have to be still long enough for it to find you. Because favor looks for alignment, not noise. And the ones who carry it best are often the ones who walked through seasons of silence with open hands and steady hearts. It finds those who weren't trying to be seen, but who were faithful when no one was looking. It chooses the ones who didn't chase recognition, but who carried integrity in the shadows. That's the soil in which true favor grows. It's not about being popular, it's about being prepared. Many want the stage, but few are ready for the weight of what comes with the spotlight. Because favor is not always comfort, it's responsibility. What feels like a gift from the outside is often a calling on the inside. And if your character hasn't been formed to hold it, it won't last. That's why you've been refined, so that when the blessing comes, you don't crumble under it. You rise with it. There's power in knowing you were chosen not for your visibility, but for your vision. This isn't about being noticed, it's about being trusted. That's why the universe withheld certain things from you until now. Not to hurt you, to preserve you, to give you a future that your past couldn't touch. You were kept from lesser things because something greater was growing. You might not see how all the moments connect. You might not understand the delays or the detours, but the bigger picture isn't drawn in straight lines. It's painted with curves, with shadows, with brush strokes that only make sense when you step back. And when you do, you'll see it, that every disappointment was a redirection. Every no was a hidden yes. Every pause was pregnant with purpose. Your journey hasn't been random. It's been sacredly ordered. And now, as the silence begins to shift, as the ground beneath you starts to tremble with possibility, you're being invited to step into what's already yours. Not because you chased it, but because you were ready. Not because you earned it, but because you aligned with it. And when it arrives, it won't look like payback. It will look like destiny catching up. Because favor doesn't need an explanation. It carries its own authority. It opens what was sealed. It calls what was buried. It lifts what was overlooked. It doesn't ask for applause. It creates impact. And when it settles on your life, it rewrites the rules. It bypasses the expected. It disrupts the ordinary. And it does so not to make you comfortable, but to make you useful. You're not just being blessed, you're being entrusted with influence, with reach, with a ripple effect that will move through you into spaces far beyond your imagination. The weight of it may feel heavy, but it's not meant to crush you. It's meant to stretch you, to enlarge your heart for what's ahead, to prepare you for more than you asked for. Because the divine doesn't just meet your expectations, it exceeds them. And what's about to unfold won't just answer your prayers. It will answer the prayers of others through you. You are the miracle someone else is waiting for. You are the vessel through which the universe plans to pour. That's why the silence had to last this long. That's why you had to be held back. Because what you're being trusted with isn't just favor, it's purpose. You were never simply waiting. You were being woven into something far greater than you realized. Something layered, something sacred. The path you've walked wasn't a detour, it was a design. And every time you questioned the quiet, it was because your soul was tuned to the frequency of what was forming. That discontent, that ache, that inexplicable yearning. It wasn't impatience. It was recognition. Some part of you already knew that what you were called to carry couldn't be assembled quickly. What was being arranged wasn't just for comfort. It was for calling. The strange tension of feeling overlooked and yet chosen all at once. It's not a contradiction. It's the cost of transformation. You were never meant to fit inside conventional timing. The rhythm written for you plays in a key most can't hear, and that's why things took time. Because the orchestration of your purpose required complexity. The universe doesn't toss its finest gifts at random. It places them with care. Every door that didn't open wasn't a denial, it was divine protection. And every opportunity that passed you by wasn't lost, it was filtered. You haven't been skipped over, you've been safeguarded. Not everyone can carry what you've been chosen for. That's why it's been hard. That's why it's been quiet. Not because you're behind, but because you're being aligned. And now, something is shifting, not just around you, but within you. You're sensing a pull, something more than motivation. It's as if a part of you has been awakened from deep sleep. You're beginning to remember that you weren't created for the shallow, the fleeting, the surface-level versions of success. There's a whisper inside you now that says, you were made for this, and this, whatever form it takes, won't be small. But before the unveiling, there had to be the unmaking. The stripping away of anything built on ego, on fear, on false narratives. The universe needed to ensure that when favor touched your life, it wouldn't inflate what needed to be deflated. Because real favor isn't flattery. It doesn't stroke the surface. It digs deeper. It exposes what's unready. It reveals what's unsustainable, and it builds you from the inside out. You weren't just being delayed. You were being detoxed from expectations that didn't belong to you, from patterns that drained your energy, from people who couldn't go where you're going. The pruning was necessary. The pain was part of the blueprint. The silence wasn't rejection, it was recalibration. You were being realigned with a purpose that requires precision, not popularity. And when it arrives, when the wave breaks and favor floods your life, it won't be because you begged for it. It'll be because your spirit matched the vibration of what was always meant for you. And it will come in such a way that even those who doubted your path will have no choice but to admit that something beyond reason is at work. Because this isn't about what you can explain, it's about what you can embody. You're becoming the kind of person who can be trusted with visibility, but still chooses humility. The kind of person who can carry influence without being carried away by it. That's what the quiet shaped in you. That's what the wilderness formed: a deeper integrity, a higher standard, a steadiness that doesn't bend under pressure. You've been tested, not to prove anything to others, but to prove something to yourself, that you can endure, that you can keep your soul anchored when the tides of life threaten to drown you, that you can still show up, still believe, still hope, even when everything in your outer world gives you permission to quit. And now the universe is answering that endurance, not with mere relief, but with revelation. The favor you're about to encounter isn't about payback, it's about purpose. It won't just lift you, it will unlock others through you. This is not a self-contained blessing, it's an outpouring, one that spills over into every life connected to yours. That's why the pressure's been so great. That's why the wait's been so long. Because what's forming is too expansive to fit inside comfort zones. This isn't a chapter change, it's a whole new story. And you're not stepping into it by force, but by flow. The doors that are opening now aren't ones you have to pry. They're opening because you're aligned, not with outcomes, but with your essence. You're no longer chasing favor. You're embodying the posture that attracts it naturally. Because true favor doesn't look like striving, it looks like surrender, like presence, like devotion without demand. You're standing in that place now, not because you performed your way into it, but because you became the kind of soul who could hold it without losing yourself. And the shift will be undeniable. The moment it arrives, the air will feel different, the room will tilt, conversations will shift, doors you forgot you knocked on will suddenly swing open. You'll start hearing your name in spaces where your feet haven't walked. And it won't make sense, not in the way that logic demands, but it will make sense to your soul. It will feel like the moment you were built for, without knowing you were being built. That is the nature of divine unfolding. It doesn't send warnings, it doesn't give previews, it just arrives, and when it does, it comes with clarity. Suddenly, what confused you will make sense. The nights you cried, the paths you questioned, the losses you mourned, all of them will click into place like puzzle pieces that were waiting for the right frame. It will feel like grace made visible, like everything you carried in the dark has finally been acknowledged in the light. But even in that visibility, your calling won't change. You weren't lifted just to be seen. You were lifted to see others. You were elevated so you could elevate. You were poured into so you could pour out. Because that's what favor does. It multiplies when it moves. It was never meant to be held still. It's a river, not a reservoir, and you are the channel through which it will flow. That's why you had to be emptied first, so there would be room, so the blessings wouldn't drown you, so the recognition wouldn't replace the mission. And even as it arrives, it won't be about applause, it'll be about assignment. You'll feel it not just in accolades, but in accountability. Not just in celebration, but in calling. Because this favor, this divine alignment, it comes with weight. The weight of legacy, of transformation, of stepping into something that didn't begin with you and won't end with you. You're part of a larger story, and now your role in it is being activated. So don't be surprised if everything begins shifting at once. Don't be alarmed when people who once fit your world can no longer walk beside you. The new path requires space, and some ties must loosen so the wings can spread. You're not losing people. You're gaining altitude. You're not being isolated. You're being refined. Because the weight of favor will always test the strength of your roots, and you've spent this silent season going deeper, not wider. And now that depth is about to produce fruit. You won't need to promote yourself. The alignment will speak for you. The right people will find you. The right doors will respond to your presence, not because of a resume, but because of resonance. You will carry something that can't be faked, an energy that only comes from walking through fire without letting it harden you. And while others wonder how it happened, you'll know. You'll remember the nights you didn't sleep, the mornings you couldn't move, the days you carried hope like a flickering candle through storms of doubt. You'll remember and you'll smile, not with arrogance but with awe, because you'll know this was never your doing, this was always divine. And when it falls into place, when the blessings begin to pour, it won't feel like arrival. It'll feel like beginning, like the real journey has just started. Because favor doesn't mark the end of struggle, it marks the start of stewardship. Now comes the work of carrying what you've been trusted with. Now comes the call to build what others said was impossible, to plant where soil once seemed barren, to speak life where silence once lived. And if you ever doubt your worthiness, remember this: favor doesn't come to the flawless. It comes to the faithful, the ones who kept showing up when it made no sense, who kept loving when it wasn't returned, who kept believing when the evidence disappeared. That's who favor finds. And now it's found you. This is the season where what was hidden becomes visible, where what was prepared in private becomes undeniable in public, where the very areas you questioned become the very platforms through which light will shine. And it won't be for show, it'll be for service. So hold steady, don't shrink, don't apologize for what's rising. You were made for this moment. Even if the journey here has tried to convince you otherwise, you're not just ready, you're right on time. The truth is, you've already crossed the threshold. You may not have noticed the moment it happened, but the old weight you carried doesn't fit the same anymore. The fears that once gripped you now feel strangely distant. That urgency that once defined your days has slowed, not because you've lost drive, but because you've finally found alignment. And alignment doesn't rush. It recognizes that timing is no longer a threat, it's an ally. The breakthrough you've waited for isn't in the future. It's already begun unfolding within you. Long before it manifests outside of you, it has to first become true inside. And that's what's been quietly happening all along. You've been shedding the layers that told you you weren't ready, peeling away the lies that said you had to earn love, that you had to earn peace, that you had to qualify for purpose. But your readiness was never about perfection. It was about presence, about learning how to stay open in the middle of uncertainty, about remaining soft in the face of delay. And you did that. You didn't just survive the stillness, you listened to it. You sat in the void without demanding it fill itself. You allowed your questions to hang in the air like lanterns, not expecting answers immediately, but trusting that when the light returned, it would make sense of everything. And now the light is returning, not in flashes of drama, but in steady waves of clarity. You're beginning to see that what was once lost was actually loosening, that what you mourned as endings were necessary exits. The space that was carved out of your life was never meant to stay empty. It was meant to hold something greater. And now that greater is moving toward you with deliberate speed. The pressure that once made you tremble now feels like preparation. The silence that made you question everything now feels sacred. You understand that the universe never forgot you. It was just finishing the details. The blueprint was already approved. The construction took time. But now the foundation is complete, and what rises next isn't fragile. It won't collapse under the first gust of adversity. It has been weathered in your waiting. Don't look back for explanations. You won't find them there. What's coming doesn't need validation from your past. It carries its own authority. It carries clarity. It carries peace. When it lands, there will be no doubt. You'll recognize it, not because it will look familiar, but because it will feel aligned. It will settle in your spirit like truth always does, quietly, boldly, without apology. And it will not knock gently. It will arrive like thunder in a still sky, like a sudden bloom after a long winter. And when it does, it will demand that you stand in your full power, not the version of yourself that shrinks to make others comfortable, but the one who knows that humility and confidence can coexist. The one who understands that favor doesn't make you better than others, it simply makes you more responsible. You will no longer second-guess your steps. You'll walk as if the ground was made for your movement, because it was. The suddenness of favor will feel surreal, but it's not a fantasy. It's fulfillment, and with it will come a call, not to boast, but to build, not to collect, but to contribute. You'll be invited into spaces you once only dreamed of, not for decoration, but for disruption. You were never meant to blend in. You were always meant to be a signal, a catalyst, a light bearer in systems grown cold. And the universe will use you, not because you're flawless, but because you're available. The most powerful instruments are not always the most polished. They're the ones who say yes when it's easier to say no, who choose obedience over applause, who risk misunderstanding in order to remain faithful to the deeper call. So don't be surprised when what once resisted you now makes way, when doors that were welded shut swing open with ease, when connections appear that bypass all logic. That's not coincidence. That's orchestration. That's alignment catching up to your timeline. And when it comes, don't try to control it. Don't try to explain it. Just receive it. Let it move through you. Let it stretch you. Let it carry you into rooms where your voice has power and your story unlocks healing in others. Because favor isn't about fame, it's about function. You are called to carry change, and now you're being equipped to do so. The relationships that will emerge in this new season won't drain you. They'll match you. They'll meet you at the level of your growth. They won't compete with your light. They'll expand it. You're not being surrounded by opportunists. You're being positioned among architects. People building with purpose. People who speak your frequency without needing translation. You'll know them by their fruit, not their flash, and you'll recognize them not by what they say, but by how they make you feel. Safe, seen, aligned. These are the divine connections. These are the allies who walk with you, not for gain, but for mission. You're not entering this season alone. You're being partnered with others who carry pieces of the same vision, and together, the impact will multiply. This is not addition. This is multiplication. And it's coming not because you forced it, but because you flowed into it. Everything about this season will feel like confirmation. The timing, the opportunities, the restoration. What was once broken is being mended. What was once taken is being returned. But not in the same form, in fuller form, in refined form. Because you're not who you were when you lost it. You're stronger now, clearer, more anchored. And that means what you receive now won't just bless you, it will sustain you. So if you still feel the edge of doubt tugging at your mind, let this be the reminder: you haven't missed it. You are right on schedule. Even the missteps were part of the choreography. Even the detours held keys. And even the silence was filled with whispers you didn't know how to hear until now. But now you hear, now you see, now you feel the shift underfoot. The next chapter is not something you enter. It's something you become. You're not stepping into favor. You are favor embodied. You're walking proof that grace still finds the faithful, that alignment still brings access, That what's meant for you will always know how to reach you, even if it has to move through storms, even if it has to pause until you're ready. You were never forgotten, you were being preserved, and now you're being revealed, not as a product of striving, but as a reflection of surrender. This is what happens when timing and purpose collide, when waiting meets release, when silence gives way to sound. And it won't just change your circumstances, it will change how you carry yourself. No longer looking for validation, no longer shrinking in rooms where your presence belongs. You will speak with clarity, not volume. You will move with intention, not haste. And your peace will be the loudest part of you. That's the mark of true favor. It doesn't demand attention, it commands atmosphere. So let the shift come. Let the wind of change sweep through your life. Let it rearrange what needs to be moved. Let it bring what your hands could never have built alone. And when it does, don't cling to the old. Don't argue with the past. Honor it, then release it. Because you're not called to repeat. You're called to evolve. You are becoming the answer to prayers spoken in rooms you've never entered. You are the fulfillment of promises made before you were born. You are the legacy someone else will point to and say, because of them, I believed again. That's how deep this runs. That's how wide it spreads. Favor doesn't just fall on individuals. It flows through generations. And now it flows through you. Let the past be a teacher, not a tether. Let your former seasons inform you, but never limit you. What you carry now is too expansive to fit inside old frameworks. It needs new space, new structures, new language, and the universe will provide those too. Not all at once, but piece by piece, door by door, person by person. So stay expectant, but stay grounded. Stay open, but stay rooted. Let humility walk hand in hand with boldness. Let wisdom guard your yes and peace confirm your next move. You're not entering unknown territory. You're stepping into foreseen alignment. The blueprint was written long ago. You're just now catching up to it. You were never chasing favor. Favor was waiting for you to become someone it could trust. And now that you have, it's time. Let it flood in. Let it stretch your imagination. Let it carry your name farther than your feet could ever go. Let it awaken every dormant dream. Let it baptize you in clarity. Let it mark the season, not as your moment of arrival, but as your beginning. The world hasn't seen what's about to be born through you, but the universe has, and it's ready. Now go. Walk forward with grace. Carry it with reverence. And remember, this was never just about you. It was always about what would flow through you.